Well, Advaita Vedanta is a kind of traditional approach that's been going on for centuries and centuries. And contemporary non-duality is, I guess, how that has kind of transitioned into the West. Now, Advaita Vedanta, it's an Indian tradition, but it's a universal tradition. You don't have to be Indian, or you don't have to be Hindu or have any specific beliefs. But over the years, it also has gathered it's gathered dust along the way. It's gathered dogma. It's gathered entrenchment. And like all spiritual traditions, this happens. Because all teachings they can collect ignorance. And because what we're talking about is beyond words, there's always going to be some people who take their words literally and make it into a dogma, or make it into a system, or make it into a belief. And while those systems and dogmas can be of limited use and help and alleviate suffering on some level, they ultimately are not liberating. And so what we're speaking about is something that's beyond scripture. And the wonderful thing about the Advaita Vedanta scriptures is they say this. Many places they say, the teachings aren't really in the scriptures. The scriptures are just pointing and indicating. So I think both the contemporary non-dual scene has a place and the traditional scriptures have a place. But neither really can get to what we're talking about. And I include myself in that. I'm not really, because what we're speaking about cannot really be adequately spoken about. There's a mystery to how this is shared. Essentially, this doesn't need to be shared. So when it is shared, there can be a kind of resonance or illumination of what already is the case. But the way that occurs is mysterious and varied as well. Or I can say apparently varied. It seems to vary the way this is shared. For me, it was like a devotional feeling towards Ramana, and his teachings, and more than his teachings, his presence that really sort of overwhelmed me. And I can say the sense of me kind of dissolved into him and his presence. But what was left was his presence, which is kind of all that is, or me. That's just a way of describing something very simple. There's nothing special. But so what we tend to find though is that the contemporary, as you put it, the contemporary non-dual scene, or the Western non-dual scene, it tends to look down upon practices and anything that's progressive, or it involves, when I say progressive, I mean it involves some kind of path. And there's a huge value to that, because there's a huge, there is something that is false about there being a path. There is no real path, because who's going and who's traveling on this path, and where are you traveling to, you see. But at the same time, to deny the path is to deny the apparent journey that people go through. So traditional teachings have often married these two aspects together: the spontaneous illumination, the spontaneously occurring liberation that's always happening, and the apparent path. And there's a tension between these two in most teachings. It's just a natural way it's expressed.